Shay, I know it's a donation from someone who's anonymous. And so they wanted me to present this to you, actually to the Parks and Recreation Department, through you, for a job well done. What it is basically 6 Shakespeare fishing rod and reel outfits for the Yorkville Parks and Rec program. You can see there's a bunch of different colors. Cool. Nice fishing tools.
Yes.
For the fishing program. So I wanted to present 6 of them. I'm going to read this just because I think it's kind of what the message they wanted to convey to you. They said this is a presentation for 6 Shakespeare fishing rod and reel outfits to Parks and Recs program through Shay Rossborough. The donor has asked for me to keep his or her name anonymous, but wanted to thank Shay Rossborough for an excellent job as an instructor in the program. This donor knew 3 children in the program that love the fishing program and would like to see it continue and prosper. Congrats for a job well done, Shay, and to the Parks and Recs department for a much appreciated program. So we want to thank you.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Well, thank you, George, and please thank the donor on behalf of the city and Parks and Rec, and Shay, thank you for your job well done. Okay, we're having no public hearing tonight. Do we have any citizen comment?
What?
Please step forward, take your name for the record, and please sign the sheet there.
My name is Kurt Nessler, 4617. I do have comments regarding the Blackberry Creek dam removal project. It generally is some degree more interactive, but at least if these questions could be answered later on in the meeting would be good. I first and foremost want to thank officials for tabling the motion last week and giving us the opportunity to read up on the issue a little bit more. This was an issue that was pretty much long dormant, even though we were an adjacent property owner, and then took immediate action. So it required a little bit of research on our part to do it. And if possible, I'd like to go through and ask a few questions regarding the existing board packet. One thing that was very unclear to myself during the Kendall County S3 GIS map was who currently owns the dam in the Library Creek parcel. So I'd certainly like to have that established. If it's IDNR or perhaps the sanitary district, the boundaries weren't quite clear. Question number 2 I have regarding this is if an Illinois environmental impact study has been completed on this project and a statement issued, or if that's going to be part of the construction process. Question 3, I guess it refers to page 96 of the board packet, which is generally, I was curious in the second draft of this why all the costs for phase 2 were zeroed out. I assume it could be addressed tonight. Question 4, page 99. I'm certainly curious, as a lot of adjacent property owners are, not that there's too many of us, but there certainly are some of us in the Old Town area, where the spoil site and the construction staging area will be. It's not unclear, the boundaries given are pretty vast. Also, specifically, when talking about the city acquiring property rights, is will there be eminent domain used or needed at any step of this project? I'd certainly like to know, or at least have something on the record regarding that. On page 100 of the board package you have in front of you, will the dam and the 1,200 feet of Blackberry Creek be annexed into the city from the current owner, presumably the sanitary district, but again, it's unclear, once the project is completed? And I guess my final question is more in 2 parts, is what happens to land currently part of the creek boundaries, currently submerged by the creek, outside the channel stabilization area? There is an area that's adjacent to my property, at least one other, which is currently a creek, which is going to become solid ground at this point. It's page 105. In other dam removal projects, contiguous adjacent property owners have had the opportunity to annex land when they've been created from this. I think that's pretty much the bulk of what my questions are. And I assume there'll be some discussion of this later on.
Yeah, pretty soon we'll answer all the questions that we can. If another question arises, we'll ask it.
Marvelous. Thank you very much.
Is there any other citizen comment?
Can you just state your name one more time?
My name is Kurt Gessler, G-E-S-S-L-E-R, and I'm at 406 West Center.
Thank you.
No other citizen comments? We will.
Your Honor.
Yes, sir. Yes, absolutely.
Good evening, Your Honor. I'm going to be shooting from the hip here. During the past month, 6 weeks or so, the President of the United States gave the State of the Union address, and so had Governor Pat Quinn. As we know, they've been tax and spending folks. They've been operating under the philosophy that if you tax your citizens some more and get the government going and thus get the economy going. Your Honor, I'd like to refresh everybody's memory a little bit. In March of 2009, the President of the United States passed the Recovery Act, known as the stimulus package. On August 6, 2010, Illinois made history when it was the recipient of one of the biggest government expenditures. We got $1 billion on August 6, 2010. In January of 2011, we were broke. That's when the governor passed the 66% tax increase. As a result of that, we lost, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, we lost 300,000 jobs. Over the past few weeks, the following reports have come out. The worst states for retiring in 2012, Connecticut was number 1, Illinois number 2. Among the worst states to do business, Illinois ranked number 1. Our credit rating throughout the nation, the worst in the nation. And just not too long ago, Caterpillar was slated to have 1,000 jobs created here in the state of Illinois. They have that since changed their mind. They issued the following statement. I'll only read one paragraph. Please understand that even if the community had the right logistics for the project, Caterpillar's previously documented concerns about the business climate and overall fiscal health of the state of Illinois still would have made it impractical for us to select your community for this project. And I think that just goes to reiterate Ronald Reagan's words that government is not the solution, government is the problem, and we need to stop taxing so much. We need to set our expenditures and priorities, and we need to get rid of a lot of regulations that are unnecessary. Since you have other business to go through, Your Honor, I'll stop there. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment? Okay, if not, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Closimo?
Aye.
Wilczewski?
Aye.
Spears?
Aye.
Munns?
Aye.
Funkhauser?
Aye.
Gilson,
Aye.
Teeling,
Aye.
Hut.
Aye. We have two sets of minutes for approval, so I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular city council for January 10th, 2012 and January 24th, 2012 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Comments, questions, corrections on minutes? George?
Page 3 of 8, the first paragraph. Just for clarification purposes, as Alderman Wilson asked about, would that be a hybrid? The city should do 4 footers, but keep option 1 where it says they pay for everything, we'll just put IDOT for people reading it. And then it should be IDOT pays instead of they. IDOT pays. And the second one is page 6 of 8. There's an additional statement that was made by me during that particular discussion. I wanted to make sure it was added to the record. Alderman Wilson stated that the petitioner's attorneys, that the petitioner and attorneys stated that if we freeze fees and building codes for Blackberry, we would see a substantial increase in permits. Yet we have not seen any after agreeing to do as requested. I want to make sure that that's added because that was a discussion that was had during that poll. And it was added, a good spot that would be, says homes might have someone meet with them. It says at the same effect, Meadowbrook Homes might have someone meet with them that they want more items done. If Meadowbrook Homes can't do it, they can send them to a queue. And then at some point in that area there was that statement about Blackberry.
Where was that? Was that further down? Or was that on page 6 of 8? But
Exactly where it was?
was that in the middle there? Or?
I would say after that, after it says, and if Meadowbrook Homes, it's in the middle. And if Meadowbrook Homes can't do it, they can send them to a queue. I would say the statement happened somewhere around there. And then Alderman says that is going to be great for everybody. And then it said, I would say after that sentence is when it happened. And Alderman Munns asked what happened in Blackberry. So I think it was right before Alderman Munns followed up with what happened in Blackberry.
Okay, great.
I asked the question, or I kind of answered the question.
Anything else on January 10th?
Page 3, Public Works Report, second paragraph, first line. Second part of that sentence, it says should. I think it says should be back. Should be part of. 5.3. Then page 4. Last paragraph, 8th line from the bottom. Should be renew and continue, not continued. And then 6th line from the bottom. Change advantage to benefit. For context. Page 5, last paragraph, 5th line from the bottom. It should be, Ms. Dubicek should be executive director. And that's all for January 10th.
On January 10th, page 2, maybe? Safe Routes to School update. EDI Engineer Sanderson met with IDOT and federal officials. Is that federal or state? That was with Safe Routes. Because then later on it goes on about something about going back, sending it back to the state. It was state. So federal should be state. And then page 5 of 8, kind of in the middle of the page. Keeling stated that if this doesn't drive it, then the city isn't not out of place. She isn't or is not. And then farther down on that page, executive director of the YEDC starts with that paragraph. She said it would be an excellent marketing tool for the YEDC. And that's all I have on that one.
Under additional business, first one, WSPY. The mayor Gillespie says Yorkville made the top 10 of the WSB top 10, which is the WSPY top 10. Anything else on January 10th minutes? Anything on January 24th minutes? Yes.
Page 8, third paragraph. Chris Lawson's name is misspelled. It's L-A-U-Z-E.
I think there's a couple names.
There's actually 4 misspelled.
There's 4 misspelled there. Might want to go back and check this out. There's one of the youngest names.
Mayor Kalinsky, it's Keith. I can't, you know, I can't go over it. His name is spelled wrong. Dr. Pritchard's name is incorrect. Timothy Schmidt's name is spelled incorrect. And several others.
Anything else, Alderman Spears?
No.
Anything else on January 24th? Okay, so,
Mayor.
yes, sir.
The Air Force at the top of this. Page 3, I'm sorry, page 4, first paragraph, 18th line. I believe it's a comment by Alderman Spears. Now this, it says, now the city has the dam, yield step chute. I think it should be 4 step chute. I think that's what you said. Then a little further down, 8th line from the bottom of that paragraph should be assess, not access. Two lines down from that, it says SDA, it should be YBSD. And page 6. Second paragraph, 5th line. Replace planning commission with committee. On the same page, 4th paragraph, 11th line from the bottom. The comment is in there, single family and duplexes. After that should be added when platted. On page 7, under vendors and park policy, 2nd paragraph, 5th line. Can we clarify, it says and $1,000 for profit and $1,000 for profit. That's it.
Alderman Mosquito.
Page 6 of 8. 2, 3, 4th paragraph down. Said it, two duplex to me was residents under the same roof with 2 separate entrances and 2 separate lots.
So I have 2 separate lots.
Yes, if you could.
Anything else? Okay, so we're voting on the minutes as corrected. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Next, we have mayor's report and the Blackberry Dam intergovernmental agreement. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the intergovernmental agreement among the State of Illinois Department of Natural Resources, the United City of Yorkville, and the Yorkville Bristol Sanitary District for the Blackberry Creek Dam removal and restoration project and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute.
Second.
Comments, questions? Did you want to start out with Mr. Kessler's? I think I said that right. Questions?
Yeah, I'll just run through here. Starting from the top, the dam is currently owned by YDSD. So there was probably a century or so where that was under question. They did manage to find out that it is owned by YDSD currently. As far as the environmental impact study goes, it'll be done as part of the project by IDNR. I do know that on top of the environmental impact study, they're actually doing a historic analysis and recordation. So they're actually taking pictures of the process so that they'll be able to show us afterwards how they did it, and then they'll preserve it for historical purposes. The costs in the agreement, in the track changes of the agreement packet, the phase 2 costs are X'd out. It's just an earlier version of the document that's in there, the track changes. The final copy is in the packet. They do estimate that phase 2 is going to be $1.5 million. So that is in the clean copy of the packet. Spoiled site is still to be determined. Right now, the school district is entertaining a proposal by us to use the Whispering Meadows school land as a spoil site. So they tentatively agreed to that. There's still some ownership issues with the land. The developer actually hasn't turned over the deed, so we're in the process of forcing them to do that. The backup plan is any city parkland. The best one we think is the kind of marketplace lot where the community gardens currently are. The construction boundary of the site is entirely on YDSD property, so it's not planning on going into anybody else's property. City acquisition of land is contemplated in the agreement if necessary. It's not currently needed. It's all on YDSD property. Will the dam be annexed into the city, or is it now? It is not currently. Does not need to be for us to maintain it. If YDSD wants to annex it, or if we wanted them to annex it, I'm not sure if there's a practical benefit to doing so. You could do it. And then what happens to the land outside of the creek area after the project? Really depends on your deed. We kind of touched on this at the last meeting. If you have a deed that says it runs to the center of the creek line, obviously if the creek line changes, then your deed is going to change accordingly. So, but they're not anticipating that there's going to be much change to anybody else's property boundaries. So since they're within YDSD's area, they think that all the impacts of the creek being rerouted or changing its width will be wholly contained to the YDSD property. And those are all the ones that I've written down.
You didn't actually answer my question in the last one. It's because most of the deeds, property owners in the area will say go to the creek, not into it. Most rivers are done like not creeks. So if your deed says goes to the creek boundaries, what happens now? Because there's now new land which is currently unknown.
Sure. I would assume it would move with the boundary. So you might gain an extra 2 or 3 feet of property as a result of that for a cat.
I don't know. This is a unique circumstance, but it's certainly something we will inquire about.
Yeah, I think
So we
that.
want them.
Well,
We would like to know, actually, I called a couple months ago and inquired and haven't heard back, so
Yeah.
that would be nice to know.
I think at least, us and another principal landowner right there is also curious what will happen. Ownership is part of it. Future development is other concern as well too. So we're certainly curious, given it's going to pretty significantly affect our back lot.
Any questions? Carol?
Well, I guess the same question I had 3 weeks ago. I mean, does the dam need to be removed? Nobody's ever told me why it does or why it doesn't. I mean, it's a 175-year-old dam, and initially it was sold to us as a public safety issue. It needs to be removed, but then there was the caveat of, well, if we don't have the money, then we're not going to remove it. It's not that big of a public safety issue if we don't have the money, but it is about a big public safety issue if we do have the money. So, I mean, I personally like the dam. If it has to go because of safety issues, not a problem, but I don't think that question's ever been answered.
The clarification that was received by our staff at the meeting was that it's not an imminent public safety threat. We don't have reason to believe that it's going to collapse tomorrow, like the bridge, or that it will collapse a month from now. The issue is that it's of unknown construction quality. It's 175 years old. So they can't warrant that it will be safe. So on top of all that, they did say that, in their opinion, it's less likely that the dam would fail catastrophically than eventually, over the next couple of years, the water would drown itself around the dam, create a new path, and actually underscore the bridge abutments. They said that was the more likely scenario. And then there, you've got the new bridge and the old bridge abutments there that could be kind of underscored. So that was the more likely scenario that they told me. But because it's 175 years old, they don't know what it's maintained. They said that they would never be able to certify that it's safe. Whereas if they do the program, then obviously they can warrant that it will be well kept, and that if there's ever an imminent safety danger, they can look back at construction drawings and figure out it's failing.
So following up with that, if they were not to take this out, we have biannual inspections of the bridge, correct?
Are they still biannual if we don't have a problem with the bridge? I believe they're annual.
They will go to annual.
Annual, okay.
So we'll have annual inspections, which would be able to tell us if there is any rerouting of the creek coming into the abutments, which would most likely give us ample time to deal with that. If it's not a catastrophic failure, as they're saying it's not, we would probably have time to see something happen. If it's a rerouting, it would be slow. Like I'm saying, I've not seen a study that says that it's eminent, that it needs to be removed. I know that there's property downstream, one property that is primarily to be affected by catastrophic events. But I would think that if there's some type of a failure or rerouting, that would be less costly to mitigate that than the actual removal and 1,200 linear feet of replacement.
Well, hopefully we'd be able to catch it, yes. I think the bigger issue with that scenario would be the state might not have money at the time that we catch it in order to do it. So, hopefully they would swoop in and save us if we ever really needed them to. But there's no guarantee. The money's programmed now, they're willing to do it, and so.
One more comment on that. I mean, we don't own it as well. It's not our dam, it is YBSD's. We're putting up the other portion of this. Where's their contribution? This is directly affecting their property. That's the imminent threat is on their property. Have we had discussions with them about putting a portion of this bill?
Well, there's not a bill currently.
Well,
it's contemplated.
Down the road, if there is, yes. I mean, have those discussions, have we had any of those discussions with them? I mean,
No.
You would probably know.
I can, if you don't mind me interjecting, I can kind of ask, give you some of the questions I asked YBSD yesterday in advance, so that while we're discussing this, we can kind of get a feel for their responses to some of these things. I didn't ask all these questions, but some of them I did. One of them I asked for the dam to YBSD yesterday was, whatever happened to this major bid expediency? IDNR came to the YBSD and wanted them to sign the agreement that night. And then they came here and wanted us to sign right away for two reasons: because of this national permit, and two, because of the missing their letting. And it had to be signed. Now all of a sudden, it doesn't have to be signed. Now we've got time and nothing's being expedient here. I asked why, and the YBSD said they have no idea why. I asked about the water quality issue. Some of these questions that this gentleman brought up about the difference between the downside and upside, and we all read Mark Johnson's email to us with attached information about water quality downstream being better than upstream. They basically said they don't know, ask questions of your staff and IDNR. 3, I asked about the west abutment. We talked, this is the one where, Carl, you, I think this kind of would apply to what you were asking. I asked about the west abutment and the large diagonal crack, thus rendering failure of the dam and bridge as imminent. And that's what it says in this agreement. Did not state that previous. This was added to this agreement from the previous. I said, first we were told the safety issue, first we were told it was a safety issue, then we were told the bridge replacement was separate and not dependent on the dam condition or removal. This document states failure of both as imminent. And the minutes and EEI stated, and it states in here, quote, the state of Illinois has not said that it is a safety issue, but thinks that there is some recognition, that this structure is 170 years old, end quote. That was what we heard from EEI and our staff, which is totally different than both opinions, in my opinion. And then I just asked about, what their feedback was on that. What's the real, imminent danger here? YBS stated the crack in the abutment will cause the dam to fail once the bridge is removed. And I asked, it says, YBSD stated the crack in the abutment will cause the dam to fail once the bridge is removed. And I guess my question is, what's the real story here? Is this dam going to collapse once the bridge is removed? Is this dam collapsing going to do something to the new bridge? Is there truly a safety issue? I guess I'm trying to figure out, taking all these facts that were different from all these different sources.
I guess I disagree with your interpretation that there's two different stories. There's one story, there's been a timeline of facts, obviously, that's been uncovered. I stated that, they said it isn't imminent, it isn't a public safety issue, it's an imminent failure. I mean, we're talking about the dam only there. Now, the western abutment to the bridge and the dam are connected. I don't consider them two structures. I don't know if the engineers do, if they have any integrity between the two, but we know that the western abutment of the bridge, which is connected to the dam, is failing. That's why we closed the bridge and are reconstructing it. So, then as far as the expediency issue, nothing in my conversations with the IDNR staff have led me to believe that they're pulling back on the expediency issues. The deadlines are still there for the nationwide permit. The bid date is still there. Those haven't changed. The only reason they got tabled for 2 weeks is because they said that they would prefer to have the cleaned up document, final document, approved by staff tonight. So we're still within their deadline. They just pushed their deadline back for our approval to 2 weeks. But their deadlines have not changed. They still have to have a nationwide permit by March 18th, I believe. And they still have a letting March 7th. 8. Or the letting is for the bridge. I think some issues there.
The other questions that I asked them about were the ownership. Obviously, we know about who the ownership is, but more importantly, the maintenance. I wanted to know who maintained this dam previously to this new agreement, and their answer was nobody. The only thing that happened with that dam was once the state came in at one point and lowered the existing dam, but that's the only thing that's been done to the previous dam. So I want to know why we're why are we on the hook to maintain it? If nobody maintained the first one, why are we on the hook to maintain this new one?
That's a good question. We talked about our role at staff level. We talked about the city's role in this intergovernmental agreement for a couple months now. Whether we should be involved, whether we should recommend to be involved. Really what it comes down to is kind of a high-level conversation of who you represent as a government and what the taxpayers are paying for. Because the sanitary district and the city, we essentially have the same residents. So we're all kind of one entity, even though they're a separate governmental entity. So when you look at it, and we could say, and we would have absolutely, we've had no responsibility in the past to maintain it, we're not going to own it, so why are we maintaining it now? The answer is we have the same residents. We have a better capability to do so. We have more staff, we have more resources. It probably makes more sense for us to do it just from an efficiency standpoint rather than YBSD. And as far as the state goes, they don't have any satellite offices anywhere near here. And you just get down to kind of a fairness conversation of, should the entire residents of the state of Illinois be paying for something that's really more of a local issue, even though the state is paying for the replacement. So that's the best position to do the maintenance in the future.
And to piggyback on that, I also asked what are the criteria with these biannual inspections or semi-annual inspections. You know, and I asked this the last time we discussed this too. What are the criteria based for maintenance, operation, and rehab? How long are we liable to maintain this dam? You know, what criteria, expectations are we going to be held accountable to? And the two major questions I had were the bank stabilization and the grading rules. I think I asked that question last time, and we really didn't have a solid answer. YBSD says, I don't know, SD and IDNR. So it really didn't give me a solid answer, and I guess I'd like to know what that criteria is before we sign any agreement. What's the criteria for these inspections? What are we going to be held accountable to? If the river gets real high and washes away all that bank, are we going to be held accountable to restabilize with soil and planting?
Good question.
Things we need to think about before we go signing agreements. And the other thing I asked was the spoil areas. This gentleman brought up the spoil areas. I asked Kevin about the spoil areas, and they basically have spoken to the IDNR for spoil areas that they've agreed upon tentatively for restoration for their side of things. But I asked about ours and what kind of costs and what, if we've decided where those spoil areas are going to be and all those things. And obviously, they don't know our side of things. They know they've already struck an agreement for spoil areas with the IDNR, but we don't. We don't seem to have any idea where our spoil areas are or at least an agreement with people, a firm agreement that says these are the spoil areas, we've obtained the rights to these spoil areas, and this is what it's going to cost us. Because in this new agreement, there's a cost to that.
The school board is verbally committed to housing the spoil side of the Spring Meadows property, pending the issue B, and Kevin Marketplace is our best second option. So, yeah, that does have to be settled here next month, but to me, that's kind of a minor issue related to the
Those are some of the things, just for your knowledge. I didn't get much information. They basically said, hey, ask your staff and IDNR on some of those questions.
As far as general maintenance goes, I spoke to staff this morning, and he said, no, this isn't like the whitewater chute where we have a 3-page inspection checklist, with required weekly inspections. It's not purposely vague because it's less intense, and they don't have standards for it right now. So that was their answer. They said they didn't think that it was going to be that intense. They didn't think that really there'd be anything other than tree falls would be lodged in one of the control structures. You might have to remove it from time to time. But, they're hoping that after it's done, it's going to kind of sit there for decades.
Look, the way this reads is if this river has a flood and that bank is totally washed away, we're on the hook to restabilize it. And that could be a major cost.
Mr. Freeman, you have something to add?
If I could try to address some of the questions by George and the other aldermen, reiterating some of what Bart has stated, and I don't mean to be redundant, but just to take it in steps. The west abutment for the bridge is failing. There's the large diagonal crack. The west abutment currently is tied into the dam to some degree. So one could question, is the west abutment failing because the dam is failing? We don't know. They haven't done a structural assessment of the dam, but there certainly could be that possibility. A reason for removing the dam is you have the funding source for it that meets the objectives of IDNR, and to protect the asset that the city is going to have there with the River Road Bridge. You are making an investment in the bridge. The county is as well. With the dam in its current condition at 175 years old, there's a risk that someday that could fail. If it fails, it could affect the city's bridge that's right downstream if it's not caught in enough time to fix it. And certainly the fix, to protect the asset from the city, may require funding in the future from somebody else or the city, whereas now it is being offered by the state. From the water quality perspective, certainly the upstream water quality behind the dam is poorer than the downstream. That's because of the dam. The dam, through the cooling, will lower the dissolved oxygen levels, and it's harder for fish, macroinvertebrate, to live within that environment. By removing the dam, you'll allow this creek to be more free-flowing. The dissolved oxygen levels will go up. You'll be able to allow fish to migrate upstream, macroinvertebrate to migrate upstream from the Fox River, which is one of the main objectives that IDNR has identified as one of their goals for taking the dam out. I don't know if I hit everything there, but I tried to hit some.
Jeff, just two questions based on what you said there. Number one, why wouldn't we want to do a structural evaluation of somebody would want to do a structural evaluation of this first? Because with all the money we're going to be spending on a new bridge, shouldn't we know whether or not, okay, if we put in this new bridge, if that dam's going to fail right away, or if that dam's not going to fail right away, or what's the relation between the removal and replacement of this new bridge and dam failure? And even better than that, if that dam is not removed, if that dam failure will actually cause further damage to the new bridge. We still really don't know.
I think part of the question is what's the benefit of the dam there? It doesn't provide any hydraulic improvement. It doesn't pool up enough water behind it such that in flood situations it will provide storage that reduces flood flows. From a water quality perspective, like I said, it's actually degrading the water quality, and that being one of IDNR's main goals is to have good water quality all through that stream reach. They came to that conclusion that it makes sense to take it out. So I don't know that IDNR, would want to look at doing the structural evaluation because really it's meeting their objectives from a water quality perspective to remove it.
In the IDNR's previous words, they basically stated that, that the dam basically would be removed and replaced if funds were there. And that this basically states something different. This basically states that it's imminent and that we're going to have to replace this dam. I don't know. I just have a few more questions.
No, go on. This is all good conversation.
A few more questions. Here's where it reads. This is the joint west slope of the dam and bridge has developed a large diameter crack that has allowed movement of this abutment such that the failure of the dam and bridge abutment is imminent, and whereas the city has closed the rural bridge and is proceeding with plans to remove the existing bridge deck, center pier, and joint west dam abutment, and to construct a new bridge structure to span the entire channel, and whereas the dam will require major modification for removal as a result of the bridge replacement project. So this is saying this is totally relational, meaning if we remove the bridge, either we're going to have to make a major modification to the dam or remove it.
Yeah, it's a preamble. It's a description of the project. So it's their best interpretation of the situation that's out there. I don't if we can ask them to strike it if we disagree with it. I don't know that it'll change the outcome of the agreement.
May I interrupt for 1 second? It sounds like with that wording that a study was done. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to use those words.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We just don't know. And it seems like we just don't have a lot of information here.
Because how can you make that claim or make that statement without knowing and having run a study so that you know that this will then happen?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like they've done a feasibility study. And we know that the bridge is cracked, so I'm assuming they could make that determination from that.
Well, to address some of your responses, even if the bridge is cracked, it could have been cracked for 100 years and survived. I mean, they're not giving us the information that I think we need. And then also, without doing the environmental study, and they're going to perform that during the project once we sign on the dotted line. Is that correct?
It's an early part of any construction project. Typically, you approve the agreement to do it first, and the component of it is an environmental impact study. So, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but usually that's part of your phase one.
Yes, and they've been studying this for at least a decade and have done several studies related to things and looked at it. So, to some degree, a lot of that work has already been done.
It has been done. Did we have all that information? Was that supplied to council? What the
I
results were?
think from, there was core studies and other studies that were done that were shared with the city.
Will those be made public?
I'm sure they're public documents if the core did them.
Should I file a FOIA?
With the core,
I don't know, we have a copy.
okay.
Yes, I should.
That would probably be the best way to get it.
Excellent.
All things, I mean, we think at least we should see that before we're signing the document, but there's some other major problems too. I mean, I've stated this last time, and I still believe this. How can we sign something, commit to replacing a bridge, commit to dam removal, commit to phase 1 and 2? Everybody's committing to something, but basically the state can come in after phase 1 and does not commit, depending on reduction of funds or no funds available at all, can pull this off the table at any time. How can we do that? How can we commit to that sort of scenario where taxpayers' money being wasted all over the place if they pull this thing? If they decide these reductions that they're not going to do phase 2, or there's not enough money, or they don't like the money available, or there's no money available, phase 2 in this thing says we have the right to pull this project off the table. Fundamentally, I've got an issue with that. A couple other things too. Oh, go ahead, Rose.
No, that's.
There's more, so go ahead. There's plenty to talk about.
Can I ask one quick question, Rose, if you don't mind? What are the consequences to not approving this agreement? What are the consequences to the city? Now, granted, it's not our dam. We do have to protect our investment if we put the bridge in. So potentially, we're rolling the dice. If dam fails, it could harm our new bridge, but it could be there for another 175 years. We don't know. What are the consequences to not agreeing to this?
I think you hit the main one, Your Honor. If there was failure, we're talking about a bridge that's 175 years old that has not been maintained. At some point, it probably will fail. Things don't last forever, right, without maintenance. From a timing perspective, if the city and YDSD and everybody is able to move forward prior to March 18th, a nationwide permit will be secured, and they'll be able to move forward with construction this construction season. If we miss that deadline, then there's a very good chance that things will be delayed, and they could be delayed out to another year. With that, I think we potentially run into issues that getting into future fiscal years with the state, that the funding will not be there.
But that may happen anyway, Jeff. It may not be there, and they may pull the project regardless, and in here they're given the right to do that.
Well, I think, that, as I understand it, that's fairly standard language, Alderman Gilson, such that it gives them that option, but they have informed the city that they have every intent of moving forward, and they do have the funds currently secured to move forward. Phase 1 is essentially some earthwork in the area. It's not affecting the dam. So if they did in fact move forward with that and could not move forward with phase 2, it really doesn't affect anything for the city, anything different than what you have now. By committing to this, you certainly have a much better chance that the dam issue, if you want to call it that, could be solved.
Oh, I just wanted to say that Yorkville Bristol Sanitary District services non-Yorkville residents as well. And to me, this is similar to the KenCom. I'm going to compare it to that. The burden is on Yorkville residents. And why can't the sanitary district pick up? They clearly have more revenue than the city does. We're at a deficit, they are not. And then the environmental study, I had a problem with that also. By then, even though it may be typical, I'm not in favor of it. To me, that would be similar to a doctor scheduling his patient for surgery without taking appropriate tests, without really knowing if it is beneficial, if it is needed. I'm just going to do a comparison there. And then also with the homeowners, I think they need more information on the deeds. I mean, they've inquired several times, and I've experienced that myself with a common area that we had, and that is very frustrating to just have it unknown. I mean, I think that's something that they do know. I don't care if they've lived there 6 months or 100 years themselves, but this is something that they should know. And there's just so many things that, and with the state having money, I find that really hard to believe. I mean, we're talking about the state of Illinois. I can't see any money there. I mean, Jesse, you could confirm that. So, and again, they don't know. Is it the abutment that's failing, or is it the dam, or is it none of the above? I don't think that I have enough information to approve this.
Well, let me ask this. Since the bridge and the dam are two completely separate things, if this doesn't get approved at this meeting, does that hold up the bridge construction? Is the bridge being built regardless of what we're doing with the dam?
Yes.
So the bridge is on its way.
I got one question. What about all it's, you said all the dirt and stuff they're going to be digging up and throwing it somewhere? You know how every time we dig up somewhere there's weird stuff you find? So, I mean, what if you start digging up these tons of dirt and throwing it kind of marketplace that something's contaminated?
They'll have to study it before they.
I think the city is responsible.
No, there's not. There's already been the samples taken. They've already got a clean bill of health on the samples. The Army Corps of Engineers will not approve a nationwide permit without testing these things. Let's be real honest, real fast. They won't. If that doesn't happen, there's been preliminary samples done and preliminary testing done. Phase 1 is an embankment, an earthen embankment that follows the bank of the creek, and then there's a channel cut through, so the creek can be diverted to do the dredging of the creek to get the silt and spoils out of there. That has been tested as well and has passed and been able to be under this nationwide permit, is my understanding. As far as Rosa said, the west abutment and the west face of the dam, they are connected. And the reason River Road is closed right now is because that separation in those joints where you see a stair step, that big crack, opened, and opened a lot. Joe Wyrot, when he was here as a city engineer, would go down there, I believe it was quarterly or semi-annually, and measure. They would get in a canoe and they would go down there and measure the cracks. And when they found that the gap had opened, that's when he made the call to the state, and the decision was made to close the bridge. So it is tied. That abutment is tied in with limestone to the face of that dam on the west side. There is a connection. And that's why the failure is imminent. Is it immediate? No. Imminent? Yes. There's a big difference. I agree with that, but it is imminent.
Is there one more thing on it too? Like Mother Nature's been doing it for how long? 175 years, taking care of herself out there. I'm saying, if you start messing around with stuff, this could be worse. But get dirt.
That just made me want to ask you a question. If the bridge and the dam are connected, how are they going to remove that part of the bridge without removing the dam?
It's just a platform on top. It's not that is where there's the platform on top and the abutment here you can disconnect.
Because the way you made it sound like they were.
But that's the dam face and the abutment, not the deck.
So if the dam is not removed, that bridge abutment is staying there, even with the new bridge in place.
I have not seen those plans. I can't say yes or no to that, but I don't know how they could take it apart all the way.
Yeah, so
Jeff, have you seen?
I have, and I think the assumption is the dam was coming down, so I don't know that they've really evaluated it sitting there after the fact.
Is there a chance that would change the bridge plans?
I believe that the bridge is independent because they're putting in a new west abutment. I mean, there could be, I guess, some more concern as to armor things to a greater degree, such that if the dam did fail at some point, that you would protect the bridge even further. I can't say right now what you would do to provide an appropriate factor of safety, but I think things could potentially change if that's the route that the city elects to go. Which I'd be concerned that would affect the timeline. Yeah.
Do we really want to spoil, or Eric, do we really want to put the dredge spoils of that on the park or the school? Regardless of Cleanville Health and that, you know what that consists of. You really want to go throw that on a school or a park?
Yeah, I mean, we had Laura took a look at the specimen.
It'll dry out. They're just going to spread it out, and then it'll dry out, and it'll eventually be topsoil. So it's great for grass. I mean, the school district is short a couple feet there because of the way the site was constructed, so, or the rough grading that's been there. So it's actually a benefit for them if they get that additional soil. It just dries out. I mean, it's everything that is in a farmer's field that washes down on the creek, and then it sits there behind that dam, and it's just that fine sediment because it's worked by the water. So when it's dried out, it'll actually be decent topsoil.
Okay. The other question is on page 4, under 4. It says the city will be responsible to pay any and all permit fees that may be required for the assistance of the permit for the project. What are those fees? Do you know how much that's going to cost?
You don't get in under the nationwide permit. There's about a $10,000 permit fee for an individual project. So if we miss our deadline and then we decide all of a sudden at some point down the road that we want to do this and the state disagrees with funding it, this agreement would say that we'd be responsible for the permit fee, which would be about $10,000.
So now there's zero. That's
Correct.
No cost.
Make it by the nationwide permit, there's no fee.
Anyone else?
Can I say, George, over there, so you went to their meeting, and they just kind of, they just basically ignored you about the talk about
They didn't ignore me, Marty. What they basically said was, those are good questions we don't know on some of them, and those are good questions for your staff and IDNR.
I mean, about them kicking in the case of it.
When they asked, I didn't say, why didn't you kick it in the paper somewhere? I didn't get into that because we need to make a decision on how we want to handle it here. So I just asked questions to bring back as liaison, and if we make a decision we want them to kick in, then we can ask those questions. A few more questions if you don't mind. Right here where it says failure of the city to properly maintain the project, and it talks about 30-day written notice, I still would like to know that answer to the bank stabilization and the grading errors, regardless, because I still want to know if that thing floods, which is a high possibility that'll happen, that we could be on the hook there for major stabilization efforts for that bank. Number 4, under page 5, it says the city will acquire and name the city without cost of natural resources of the district all privately owned property rights required for any spoil sites. There will be no acquisition, correct?
We're not
Okay, and same with all expenses associated with property rights and acquisitions, just tied up with attorney fees, survey costs, conversion, legal documents, there'll be no cost there.
We're not anticipating needing any additional property.
Dan, are you still going, George?
Okay, the maintenance, Alderman Wilson's concerned about, it belongs, this property belongs to the Bristol, the sanitary district. So we do their billing for the water bill, on our water bills, and we have an intergovernmental agreement that they have to pay us for that. Can't we have an intergovernmental agreement on this too, if something were to happen, that they would pay for it, even though, because you said we have the equipment, we have the manpower to do it, why don't we have an intergovernmental, what I mean?
Anything's possible, it's just not contemplated in the existing agreement, so that
Right.
something we would.
Well, that would just be something that we can agree with them, since it is their property. I don't really think we should have to take care of it, but that's just that would be an alternative to what we have. No problem with this.
It's reasonable to ask.
One thing, can we clarify, there are 3 parcels on the northeast side of the creek that are not YBSD property, correct? They are residential properties.
Generally northeast, there are private properties
Right.
out there.
Those are directly affected. One is actually abutting the dam. And 2, I checked the GIS today. The first parcel is at the corner of River Road and the creek. That one is abutting the dam on the east side. The next 2 parcels are abutting the creek before we get over to the park. those are directly affected. Those are going to be, if I've read the agreement correctly, the stabilization is going to be riprap. Is that correct?
We've not seen the final plan.
Somewhere in that, I thought I read that there was riprap as part of the stabilization.
I'm sure that will be part of it. And
Very similar to what they did over in Oswego when they removed their 3 dams. It was completely riprap for their replacement. That's their stabilization. That's a significant difference. We have then a natural setting. Right now, it's a natural wooded area on that side of those properties, those 3 residential properties. That would be a pretty big change. And then if we're maintaining that area, that's a pretty big responsibility for us to maintain their private shorelines, if assuming their property does go to the creek or to the center. So I just want to bring that up there.
I don't believe it's riprap on the bank stabilization that you're talking about. I think it's 2-to-1 slope, but I think there's an erosion control mat that goes down the actual plantings. And my understanding is they want it to return to a natural area when we're done. I don't believe it's just a riprap bank along the side.
through the agreement, the city has essentially final say or approval of plans. So certainly we can look into something like that, and if that's not appropriate for that area, then we would have them or ask them to put in what's
Well, if we ask them for anything other than what they offer, that's an additional charge to us according to the agreement, though. Would that be correct?
If it's a higher cost, I mean, riprap versus some more natural, it could be comparable in the end.
We ready to vote on it? Next up, yes, ma'am. Please state your name for the record.
Carol Sheehan, and I appreciate you letting me comment on a statement that Alderman Colson brought earlier about the safety of the dam. And I heard a lot of talk about it. It's 175 years old. How horrible that is. And I also heard there's been no maintenance. And it's still there. And I can personally remember 2 floods that did not take out the dam, but went around it and took out the road and made a whole path to the river, and that was all repaired. But the dam did not fail, so I don't think we need to be concerned about whether that's going to stay there. I think it's going to stay there. I don't know who built it, but it's reasonable.
I think that goes to your concern about if it did flood and go around the dam, that it could damage the new abutments for the new bridge. That was IDNR's concern.
That, and I stated at the last meeting too, is YBSD properties directly downstream at $20 million for infrastructure. Is it all going to get washed away? Probably not. But you know, any flood damage is direct cost to the taxpayer.
It didn't wash away in 96, did it, Mark?
I
It
don't.
got damaged, but it didn't wash away.
Okay.
Well, that's an ultimate reason why the YBSD should be the one to maintain it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, are you guys ready to vote? I'm ready. I'll give him time on this. Roll call, please.
Losino?
Nay.
Funkhauser?
Nay.
Hilshewski?
Nay.
Teeling? Gilson?
Nay.
Cott?
Nay.
Munns?
Hey,
Spears?
He's got you off.
Am I right here tonight?
Nay. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Motion fails. Okay. Moving on is a resolution for TIPS program participation. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution for participation in the interlocal purchasing system, TIPS, and to approve the interlocal agreement to participate in the TIPS tax program and authorize the mayor to execute.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions on TIPS tax? We talked about it last meeting. Just a resolution for it. Alderman Spears, I would like to recognize you first.
Thank you very much for recognizing me here. Who is this reviewed by? Did we go? No.
This was an old resolution that we did a long time ago. It was an agreement that we did, and now this is just a resolution, is it not?
It's the second half of what we approved last So we mistakenly approved just basically a motion to authorize the program, but there's a resolution that's required. So it's a standard resolution. They just need it for their documentation so that they know we're able to participate in it. So.
Okay, thank you.
Question is that it's titled like the board of directors authorized. I mean, we're not really a board of directors. I mean,
It's their standard language, so we were going to cross it out and get it right in city council.
You don't get a Word document to alter. It comes as a PDF and that's what you approve. So
that's fine.
Anyone else? Roll call, please.
Funkhauser.
Aye.
Wilczewski.
Aye.
Teeling.
Aye.
Gilson.
Aye.
Hutt.
Aye.
Lentz.
Aye.
Spears.
Aye.
Colosimo.
Aye.
Okay, next is the solid waste collection RFP for both Oswego and Yorkville. Motion to approve a joint RFP for refuse collection for Oswego and Yorkville.
So moved. Second.
Okay, this is an RFP that we started and then we joined in with Oswego. Hopefully this will be a model of communities working together and sharing resources and getting a better deal for the taxpayer. Oswego did approve it at their last meeting. The Oswego portion of it is a little confusing and lengthy compared to the Yorkville portion, but it is what it is. Any comments or questions on the joint RFP? Yes, sir.
Just the first one is, can we still bid this in aggregate with Oswego and regardless of what happens, still keep the terms of service based on what we currently have today without any change? It seems like the residents are pretty happy with our service.
Yeah, it's set up so that each board has their own decision-making authority. They can select their own vendor, negotiate their own vendor, approve their own contract.
Has there been additional discussion with Allied and staff based on email requests from the hauler?
I don't understand.
Well, I received an email from Allied asking to meet, and I obviously told them I'm not going to do that. And they asked to meet with staff. I just didn't know if there had been any additional discussion.
We've had phone conversations with the individual haulers about the timing of the RFP, what's contained in the draft RFPs. You know, we tried to do a little bit of preliminary explanation, but there will be a pre-bid meeting scheduled with some confusion.
Okay. The other question I had was on the extensions we're talking about in this agreement. Have we, I mean, it doesn't say that it says the cost for the additional extensions or details of that. We really don't have that yet. Do we, I mean, if we extend that for however long it needs to be extended until this is approved, we don't know whether or not they'll be able to increase our cost substantially or not?
The extensions to the existing contract are still to be negotiated, so obviously both haulers have an incentive to treat us nicely, and so we're going to have with that knowledge.
Should we, do you think, Bart, we should shore that up? If we,
Yeah, it'll be short up for the next one.
before we do this?
No, this will be published and the window will be open simultaneously with our contract being extended. So the alternative is that we rush this as quick as possible and then go forward. So I'm not worried that there will be logistical issues with having this open and then extended.
So one other question, are we liable to accept any terms of this bid once it goes out to the haulers for the bid? In other words, if once it goes out and what if we decide we don't like it and we pull out, are we liable to pull out and not take the bid at all?
No, we have the right to change the bid standard.
Reject any and all bids.
Yeah.
Great.
Or any single bid if you're not doing
That's all I have. Thank you.
Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Colosimo.
Aye.
Funkhauser.
Aye.
Wilczewski.
Aye.
Teeling.
Aye.
Gilson.
Aye.
Hutt.
Aye.
Lentz.
Aye.
Spears.
Aye.
Okay, we have no committee reports. Do we have anything from the park board? No park board report, plan commission,
No report?
ZBA,
No report?
no city council report, city clerk's report.
Yes, I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the MFT audit report number 60 for January 1st, 2008 through December 31st, 2010.
So moved.
Any comments or questions on LFT audit report? Yes, sir.
Well, I'm no expert in audit reports, and Rob, I was curious whether you've reviewed this, I assume, the audit report from the LFT?
Okay.
And did you see any issues with it? There were some codes in there I didn't understand, so I just figured I'd touch base with you.
Yeah, they just relate to specific projects, but the auditor didn't find any compliance issues with the MFT fund, so there's a clean opinion, if you will.
And you're comfortable with the report?
I am.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Roll call, please.
Funkelsler?
Aye.
Wilczynski?
Aye.
Teeling?
Aye.
Gilson?
Aye.
Cott?
Aye.
Lund?
Aye.
Spears?
Aye.
Colosimo?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Mr. Treasurer, any report? No report. Any community and liaison reports? Mr. Gilson? Mr. Spears goes?
Spears goes.
Mr. Spears goes first.
I just returned, so. I attended the CenCom meeting January 26th, and the staff reported wireless 911 statistics for the month of December represented 77% of all the 911 calls received. The board approved the December minutes, the December 2011 treasurer's report, operations bills, surcharge bills, new build-out equipment, and council furniture. The board discussed the status of the tower project consisting of 911 towers located at the Lisbon Fire Station, Newark, Spy Radio in Plano, Oswego, Cornell Lane, and Legion Road. As reported earlier, the towers are required to be upgraded. Permits have been obtained and some steel has already arrived. It is anticipated the towers will be up and operating by June or July. The FCC requires the upgrades must be complete and be narrowband compliant by January 1st, 2013. Total cost for this project is $1,585,927.20. Also, proposals were obtained for emergency generators at the Newark and Legion Road sites. The budget cost is $40,000 for that. The board approved the proposal for the radio infrastructure. Staff recommended the purchase of the narrowband radio communications equipment to replace the existing systems. The new equipment being recommended is a 4-channel system, 2 narrowband police channels operating on UHF, and 2 narrowband fire channels operating on VHF. The board discussed purchasing and replacing the 911 phone system for both the primary, sheriff's office, and backup, Bristol Gunville Fire, dispatch centers. An update regarding construction on the basement was also provided. Several board members suggested the elected officials support and promote the surcharge referendum, which we can't do. That's it.
Under 20K over there.
Oh, they're spending it like crazy on furniture and councils, everything.
Real quick, last night the ad hoc committee for recreation facility alternatives met. That's our discussion for the alternatives if we do not purchase the rec center. During that meeting, we came up with some solutions and we'll be preparing those for presentation to the council on the 28th. So we'll have those so that we can discuss those options and show what the ad hoc committee came up with over the past several meetings.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson?
I have two. First is the YBSD report, liaison report. I attended the YBSD meeting yesterday at 5:30. There was a call to order and all were present. They discussed the GFOA budget award. Actually, there was a GFOA budget award presentation plaque presented to Office Manager Susan Micah for budget presentation and reporting fiscal period May 1st. The second discussion was for Carol Berger refund of sanitary fees previously paid. Basically, I'll read a letter sent to the YBSD from the attorney. Basically, it says, and actually this might even have been sent to us at some point too. It says, "Dear Mr. Olson, this office has been retained to protect the interests of Ms. Carol Berger, who lives at 202 Church Street, Yorkville. Ms. Berger has been paying United City of Yorkville utility bills since she bought her house in May of 1981. Among the city utility bills she has been paying since that time are charges for wastewater treatment, sewer services, and infrastructure improvements in support of the water system. The sewer-related charges were based on the city's erroneous assumption that Ms. Berger has connected to the city's sewer system. In actuality, Ms. Berger only recently learned that her residence is not connected to the city's sewer system and has never been connected to the city's sewer system. The simple fact is that Ms. Berger has for 30 years been paying the city for services which she never received. She is seeking to receive complete restitution for all such costs paid by her over 30 years. If payment is made properly, she will not commence litigation, will not ask for interest, costs, or attorney's fees. The situation began last September when Ms. Berger first detected a sewage smell originating from somewhere near the northwest corner of her residence. In October, she noticed the sewage beginning to seep out of the ground and through a crack in her driveway. Sometime in the second week of November, a company called First Response came to the residence and attempted to run a camera through the line to see where it was leaking. First Response advised Ms. Berger that she had a cracked tile. First Response called the city water sewer department, who made a site visit at the time. The site water sewer department could not advise either First Response or Ms. Berger where Ms. Berger's residence connected to the city's sewer system. But despite being unable to tell her the location of the pipe connecting the residence to the city sewer system, were somehow able to tell her she had a cracked tile. Representatives of the city made affirmative statements to Ms. Berger at this time that she was, one, connected to the city, and two, that she had a cracked tile that needed to be repaired at her expense. Both statements turned out not to be true. Based on the affirmative statements in December, Ms. Berger tried once more to have the plumber run a camera through the line to determine the location of the leaked cracked tile. The line was so backed up that they were unable to insert the camera. Contractors returned on December 12th and began digging in the yard in an attempt to locate the location of the leaked cracked tile. Instead of discovering the location of the leaked cracked tile, the contractors discovered that Ms. Berger was not connected to the city sewer system at all. Rather, she had a septic tank. Had representatives of the city water sewer department not erroneously advised the contractors and Ms. Berger in November that her drainage problem was caused by a leak in the tile connecting the residence to the city sewer system, Ms. Berger would not have spent $2,700 to dig up her yard to fix a defective drain pipe from a residence to the city sewer system. Ms. Berger had the work done and paid the bill on the city's insistence that this was the cause of her drainage problem. The city's two affirmative statements, which later proved to be wrong, resulted in what can only be called exploratory surgery, which was based on the misdiagnosis of a leak and the non-existent connection to the city sewer system. A wholly different course of action is required when dealing with a septic system. A course of action for which Ms. Berger now lacks the funds to pay because of the $2,700 exploratory surgery. The expensive and wholly unnecessary excavation done at the city's insistence uncovered that Ms. Berger's residence connected to a septic tank and not the city sewer system. We demand that the city reimburse Ms. Berger for this bill, which is a copy of cash. Ms. Berger, I'll skip through a little bit here. It says if you have the actual billing data from May of 1981 to present, we agree to refund Ms. Berger all actual charges billed for services she did not receive. Please present to me the accounting for the review. The city does not have the data available. I suggest the following calculation. It goes through that. It says Ms. Berger, you see they print out the utility bills from the years 2003 to 2011. I calculated these, and basically they came up with, to make a long story short, $16,943.74 due back to Ms. Berger. And they're seeking that full payment. That includes, it says, Ms. Berger, we are also demanding as a separate from that $16,943 reimbursement for $2,700. What happened from the Bristol Sanitary District perspective of things is they actually heard the attorney. The attorney presented this there, and they heard the attorney talk, and Ms. Berger cited the story, and they actually agreed to refund 30 years back of refunds, which amounted to $7,834.76. And at the meeting, they said the city's refund is separate, and they're going to be responsible, or somebody's going to be responsible for that part of what's owed to Ms. Berger. So they said, they told me they'll refund her back for the 30 years based on their fees, but the rest is city responsibility.
So this is threatened litigation, don't you think it would be appropriate for executive session as opposed to discussing?
This was presented at the council. This was
The letter is to Bart.
This was presented to both the YBSD and BART, and was there. They were there presenting it to the YBSD.
I'm aware of it because it was forwarded to me.
So it was public. Anybody could have heard it last night. So that's basically what happened, and YBSD approved the refund back to 1981, and the rest of the portion will be to the city. There was some public comments, and during the public comments, that was basically presented as well as Kevin had questions about the attorney's letter and about the $2,700 fee. Basically, he wasn't sure whether that actually be reimbursed or not, so he had some questions about that. The motion approving the annexation of the Kennesaw County Highway Department garage to the sanitary district was adopted, and our attorney Galsines did not have the ordinance at hand, but the YBSD approved based on the review and approval by their attorney. Motion approving the agreement with the Illinois Department of Natural Resources for dam removal and restoration. The board had not reviewed. Kevin had the documents there that night, approved upon review of Dallas. Public notice will go through the IDNR portion of the project. So when they were asked about public notice, they said they'll go through IDNR. I found it curious that that was actually brought up here at the last council meeting, and after that was brought up, the IDNR did send notices, so well before us. So that was interesting. There was a motion approving and placing on file the minutes 1/9 of 2012. They were accepted. Motion approving goods and services approved as presented for bills ending 1/31/12. Motion approving goods and services for 2/13/12 approved as presented. The electric bill, they're doing the aggregation as well, and they are seeing roughly 30% less savings through the aggregation program. So they're seeing a huge savings there. Motion or expect to see that. Motion approving investment as needed. 149,000 left after bills cleared. Motion to approve movement of funds from checking to the money market account, and then another 125,000 motion to reinvest to that to a matured CD. This is over 500,000. I'm not sure how that relates, but motion to roll over and renew 100,000 of new interest rate. Those were all approved. They also approved a SICH audit for fiscal year 2011-2012 with no bid for services. Motion approving overtime as provided by the office manager. That went into executive session. Motion approving HSA funding in advance to the outstanding medical invoices. Basically, Susan requested the YBSD approve HSA funding in advance, the same length in advance due to outstanding invoices for her. YBSD approved this for all their employees. Executive Director report discussed commercial properties paying for, he discussed commercial properties paying for 1 meter with multiple services and some not paying for anything. One has no meters but has a restroom. YBSD will be discussing ordinance discrepancy with Dallas. Kevin questioned 4 units with 1 meter and 4 separate fees, and then 4 units with 1 meter and 1 fee in the infrastructure. And that also equates to the city for infrastructure and fees related. The Ultimate Sports Bar grease trap update. The owner is coming up with a price for an inside grease trap. There was also discussion about the spoil area on the west side of the dam. We talked about that in discussion with IDNR, and they approved that with the IDNR. ComEd needs 6 pole storage areas for their poles for that project, and they agreed, the YBSD agreed to give them areas for the pole storage. Cobblestone, there was discussions about Cobblestone Bakery. Violation started January 30th to YBSD. Kevin met with the owner and said that they would send a check. It never happened. Violation issued. Owes the sanitary district over $7,000. The attorney said he had a conflict of interest and cannot be the litigation counsel for that particular issue. There was still interviewing for employment for a plant operator, and ATAD they're getting some ammonia orders when they're heavily feeding the equipment, looking at processes and expansion of that plant to help take care of that. We talked pretty much, I'm going to skip over a lot of that. We talked pretty much about the dam, what they said during the dam discussions. But the office manager did a report, WQs and 1099s were discussed for renewal for health insurance. The YDSD only saw a 2% increase for the Blue Cross Blue Shield in the health insurance, which is, I think, significantly different from what we saw. So I thought that was interesting. Philip Moreau did a report. YDSD listed a priority 4 as a small wastewater plant pre-application for loan assistance. Motion made and approved. Upcoming pre-construction meeting for Route 47 construction. YDSD will be present. Deconstruction will be doing the work. And that's it.
Any other community or liaison reports? Staff reports?
I have one more. I did want to read an email. I have asked this to be added for discussion at admin, but I want to start with the original email and kind of go through the discussion processes and end up with the ending email from a resident's concern. Basically, the email from a resident says, when you have time, I was hoping you could answer several questions I have regarding the countryside TIF. On pages 61 and 62 of the proposed budget, it said that the TIF was created back in 2005. I'm trying to understand exactly what this is and how it works. Maybe I misunderstood at the last city council meeting, but my understanding of it based on what Bart Olson said is that there's a bond payment for this. If there is, exactly what is the bond payment amount, length of term, and what is it for? If that is correct, what will happen in 2018 when the ending fund balance is not enough to cover the bond payments? I thought I heard Bart saying something about the city council having the discretion to vote on this to raise the residents' property taxes to cover the expense of paying for this. This has really been bothering me. Is this going to turn into the same thing as the Rob Roy sewer bonds? That the city council is aware and will know for several years, 5 years, that they won't have enough money in 2018 to cover this bond payment. Will the city council ignore this going problem, debt, for several years and keep putting it back on the back burner, just like they did with the Rob Roy sewer bond payments, until they are faced to deal with it? It is my understanding. If my understanding of all of this is correct, then the city has 5 years to get its act together and start planning and budgeting for this future bond payment now, out of the current year's budget and for the next 4 years, before it comes back to bite the residents with higher property taxes. Just my personal opinion, but I don't believe that the residents should get stuck having to pay for this in the form of large tax hikes, especially in our property taxes in 2018, solely for the purpose of repaying this debt. When the city is aware of the situation and the problem now, and has the next 5 years to plan and deal with and address the issues, they're going to find, or deal with and address the issue of how they're going to find the money in the budget to cover this upcoming expense. That went off to staff, and there was a response back. It says, hello, George. A good panel on tax increment financing is available on the website. It says, under TIF law, the city can sell bonds to pay for projects. These bonds are repaid with the incremental tax revenue generated within the TIF district. In 2005, the city sold a bond for the countryside TIF district because we had an approved redevelopment plan. It was a solid business plan at the time with approved development. Out of the bond proceeds and per the redevelopment agreement, the city was demolished. The center was demolished, and the developer was given reimbursement of the demolition costs. When the time came to rebuild the site, the developer's commitment with their tenant, a big box retailer, fell through and the project halted. At the time the project was halted, the city had already sold the bond, received the proceeds from the bond sale, and partially reimbursed the developer for redevelopment costs, i.e. demolition. But because the project has halted, the incremental revenue from the site was never created. Thus, there has been a revenue stream for the bond payments each year. As a result, we have been paying the yearly bond payments with the bond proceeds. The total bond was for $3,525,000 at 20 years with interest at 3.50 to 4.35%. In FY9, fiscal year 9, the bond proceeds will be exhausted, which means the money for the bond payments through 2025 must be paid some other way. If there is no development on the property, then the likely scenario would be that the general fund would have to cover it. Whether that means the city would have to raise property taxes is a different story. That would depend on the financial state of the city at that time. For comparison purposes, though, the yearly bond payment for this particular bond is approximately $300,000 per year, while the grand total of all the bonds that we had to not abate large property tax increase was over $2.2 million. I responded back to the resident. I said I'm not a big believer in any of these TIF programs. Please see the below response to your questions from Bart. I don't think this answers some of your questions other than informing you better on how these work. Your concerns are real and legitimate. Then there was one last email. I want to read it because this is why I feel it needs to be discussed further. It says, interesting. Okay, I understand the way that Bart explained it, but still have questions. So, the city sold a bond to pay for the development of this site. Then, the city reimbursed the developer for the cost for tearing down the site out of the bond that the city sold. Why? Why would or did the city agree to pay for the demolition of the site? Wouldn't or shouldn't the developer have paid for the demolition of the site themselves as part of the cost of doing business if they wanted to redevelop it? So this was just part of the deal that the city made with this developer to get their business. And as Bart put it, because we had an approved redevelopment plan with a solid business plan at the time with the approved developer, end quote. Sounds like a very bad deal the city made. And just another example of the city counting their chickens before they hatch. But wait, when the time came to rebuild the site, developers split with their tenant, a big box retailer, fell through and the project halted, according to Bart. So what type of deal or arrangement did the city have in place with this developer? And when they bailed out on the project in its entirety, why did the city not go after the developer with legal action if necessary to recoup the city's expenses, mainly this bond and its payments, or should I say repayments? So the city made an extremely bad deal with this developer, and then the deal went bad. And then when the deal went bad, the city just rolled over and played dead. Does that sum it up? So now, us existing residents and taxpayers are stuck eating this cost. An extremely bad deal that the city made, probably in the form of higher property taxes in 2019. But then Bart goes on to say, for comparison purposes, though, the yearly bond payment for this particular bond is approximately $300,000 per year, while the grand total of all bonds that we had to not abate large property taxes was $2.2 million. But per the attachment from 2019 to 2025, 6 years, the total of the principal is $1.6 million. Tap on the interest payments of $249,537. The grand total is $1,849,537. Sorry, but it's not that far off from $2.2 million. I have a major problem with this, and if most taxpayers read this email, they would too. This is something that needs to be addressed by the city council to the residents and taxpayers, and in the budget planning over the next 6 years. The city needs to find a way to cover this $1,849,537 debt immediately. Because of pushing this off on the existing residents' property tax bill is not an option at this time. It wasn't my deal, and I'll be darned if I'm going to be stuck paying for it. I appreciate all of your time for this matter, but I feel very strongly that this is something the city council needs to address. If you want to show my email to the other council members, feel free. But it is something that the city council is not going to address in the upcoming budget. But if this is something the city council is not going to address in the upcoming budget talks for the 2012-2013 budget, then I will bring it up for discussion during the citizens' comments for a public hearing portion of the upcoming city council meeting. So that's pretty much the email in total. And I did ask for that to be added to admin for further discussion. Thank you.
Any other community or liaison reports? Staff reports? Report.
I have a report. There's an update to the build program. Just yesterday, we issued 9 new building permit applications for single-family detached home starts, and they were submitted by Pulte Group. One of the applications was for the build program. The other 8 were general single-family detached construction applications, but they will possibly turn into build applications. The one that we did issue for build was in the Bristol Bay subdivision. The remaining 8 were between Autumn Creek and Bristol Bay. Just to put this into perspective, in 2011 at this time, well, overall in 2011, we issued 43 new home starts, 43 permits for new home starts. This time last year, we had no new construction permits this year. In 2010, we only had 3 for residential, and in 2009, we had 1. So it looks like the trend is going upward, and the build program has been a big part of that.
So at this point, in 2012, we're beating this point of 9, 10, and 11 combined.
Correct.
Very nice. Okay, any other staff reports?
Oh, can I add one more thing to that?
Yes, you may.
Only if it's positive. It's positive. Holte will be paying all of their building permit fees up front, so they are not taking advantage of holding off paying the permits. So.
Very nice. That's how we solve 100% to the problem. Budget report? Okay.
Lights are okay where they're at, Diane, or?
Yeah, I can see.
Okay, this is the second of 3 budget presentations. Again, the purpose of this will be to narrate public funds within the budget. We are, like I said, the second out of 3. Next will be 2 weeks from now, and the final one. Again, we've got a mandated public hearing on March 13th scheduled, and we have to approve this by the end of April. Tonight we're looking at water, sewer, parks and recreation operating. We'll call it the 79 budget to make it a little clearer. And the rec center budget, which is 80. So separate funds there, even though they're both parks and recreation. Again, I'm not going to get into a big picture budget narrative. If you're interested, there's a memo in the city council packet from the last meeting, and then it will be available on this console as well. The water fund. So the water fund and the sewer fund are both enterprise funds. And what that means basically is you've got self-contained business within your budget. So water fund revenues are supposed to offset expenses. Sewer fund revenues are supposed to offset the expenses to run those 2 businesses, we'll call them. So you've got your revenues from user fees. So you pay a per gallon charge, obviously, to use the water system. Sewer, there's a flat monthly fee. And your expenses are going to include all of your costs of running the system. People, operating supplies, chemicals for the treatment plants, et cetera, and so on. But also, you also have long-term capital expenses included within the budget. So that's what's unique to an enterprise fund, is that you put those debt service payments and those long-term costs into the budget for that business, we'll call it. Okay, so here's the excerpt, again, from the budget of the water fund. The main thing to point out here, you've got your fund balance equivalency at the bottom of the summary page for the entire fund. This is, in general, the equivalent amount of cash that you have in that budget. So it's a fund balance equivalent. And this is one of 2 funds, water and sewer, that have had cash over the past few years. And when other funds have run out of money, essentially they float for day-to-day operating expenses the other fund's money. So it's very important that we keep basically this chart relatively level, or at the very worst, we don't let it drop below the fiscal year 10 number, or if there was a fiscal year 9 column, keep it there too. So fiscal year 9 was probably about our worst scenario from a cash flow perspective, so we've improved since then. And then in general, you've got your surplus deficit for each year going forward. You've got rotating surpluses and deficits, but in general, you're keeping things relatively low over the next 5 years, which is good. Okay, so this is all of your revenues, which top half of this chart, and some of your expenses. And the expenses are going to go over to the next page. So highlights on the revenue. You've got your 2007 A bond up here. This is the bonds that will remain on property taxes according to the schedule the City Council has put in motion and has adopted. The property taxes for the 2007 A bond are actually scheduled to decrease and then come off property taxes in fiscal year 15. And again, even with that remaining on property taxes, and even with the City Council levying the full amount of general fund property taxes, we do anticipate that property taxes, your city portion, are going to go down 1 to 2% each year for the next 4 years. So it's important to note. The next main revenue you want to take a look at is the water sales revenue line item. Right now you've got a schedule approved by City Council 3 years ago now that have a mandated water rate increase each year. So the movement in this number from fiscal year 12 to 13 and then 14 is mandated by city code right now. We don't have any water rate increase is currently in the books after fiscal year 14, so that's why it remains flat going forward. In fiscal year 14, or maybe right before that, we'll have to look at our expenses within the department or within this business, see how it's doing, and then make a decision at that point whether we can decrease rates, keep them the same, or increase them. Right below water sales, a couple lines below, you've got the water infrastructure fee, which is the 8 1/4 per month per user fee that we implemented 2 years ago. This is the one that we had to basically plug a hole because of lack of water connection fees. So for the bonding fee that everybody's paying now on your water bill, if we were to get 200 new housing starts and they were to actually pay the connection fee each year, then you'd be able to remove this from the bill and your budget would remain neutral. So that's the metric that we're looking at each year. It's 200 paid water connection fees. Last year I think we were at 35 to 40. The year before that we were at 50. The year before that I think we hit 85 by the end of the year, even though we were not doing so well in February. And this year we've already got 9. So 10 per month, we're looking at 120. Hopefully we're on our way to prosperity in the water fund. So right below the water infrastructure fees, the water connection fee, and this is the amount of money that we're currently getting from those 35 or so building permits. So again, we implemented the build program this year. So it's important to note we didn't change our estimates each year going forward. We're not anticipating getting more than 35 building permits. So what this assumption means is that we're going to get our 35 that we planned for normally, and then the build incentive is going to give us an additional 30 that we're basically waiving the water connection fee. They pay it, and then we send it back to the home buyer. And so the net result of that budget-wise is that there's no increase. If we get 300 new housing starts in any one year, and let's say the City Council doesn't approve an extension to the build program, this number will jump right there at 126. We'll jump accordingly. So something to watch. Next page. So this is the back half year expenses. I'm going to jump back to the page we were just on. These expenses, salaries, general training for water department employees. New this year, obviously, is that we've got health insurance costs that goes out of each individual fund. Okay, so the second half of the expenses. New this year, we are proposing to replace old meters with radio meters. And we've got $16,000, which isn't a lot of money, but it's enough to rotate out some old meters each year for the next few years. So the reason we're doing that is because we can pay a meter reader to go around and it takes him how many weeks? 2 weeks to do every current normal water meter in this town. But we can go out and get a couple thousand radio reads in a matter of minutes. So, it makes sense from a long-term perspective to go to all radio reads, provided there aren't any technological difficulties. There haven't been any that have crippled the system yet, so that's good. Also in this fund, you've got Route 47 costs. We've talked about that. This is a plug number each year going forward. We will know in the next 30 days, actually, what this number is. We're hoping that the number that we budgeted for is high. Obviously, that'll save us some money, but we won't know for a month or so. Other items of note, you've got the grain reserve corridor. We've talked about that each year for the past couple years. That's the money that didn't get set aside for grain reserve, scheduled to expire in or about December 2012. So the end of that is near. And then also in this fund, on this page, we've got the 2007 A bond, which is what we talked about on the revenue page with property taxes. So it's interesting to note, we're scheduling to roll back the property taxes 3 years from now for that bond. The bond itself continues on well past fiscal year 17. So what we're saying is that we think that we're going to be able to pay for those bonds just out of our normal water revenues and not on property taxes, which is good news. Okay, this is just the surplus deficit, kind of the calculations page for the water fund. So again, we already talked about these pages are, or these figures are contained within the first page. The surplus deficit is the entire fund, and then the fund balance equivalent. So again, you want to make sure that this is relatively level over time, so you're not bankrupting your water business. Sewer fund, a lot of the same conversation. It's a business, revenues are from user fees, and then you've got expenses for operating sewer, running a water system would be the sewer system. So lift stations, sewer mains, we should say. We don't have these sewer towers, thankfully, so skip over that. Here's a summary page for the sewer fund. This fund is actually the main fund in the entire city that has cash. And it's basically been floating all the other funds for the past few years. So again, same principles as the water fund. You want to keep this graph relatively level over time. We are decreasing a little bit, obviously, so that's something we'll have to keep an eye on over the next few years. And the surplus deficits really don't really come into play until fiscal year 15. So we should be relatively good for the next couple of years. It's just something we have to watch to make sure that we're not depleting this fund. I did want to point out, back on the sewer fund, we refinanced our Rob Roy bonds. Okay, we'll get into that in a little bit. But you can see what the effect of the refinancing is right here, $769,000. The year before, you had a $2.2 million debt service payment out of this fund. This year, we're only doing $769,000 because with refinancing, we basically ended the prior bond, and our new bond, we don't have to pay until fiscal year 14. So you see the debt service payment goes up to $1.9 million the following year, so you've created a donut hole, which helps us from a budgetary standpoint in the next few years. So that was the benefit of refinancing. Okay, again, sewer fund, you've got revenues on the top, the first half of the expenses on the bottom here. On the revenue side, the Rob Roy bonds that we refinanced are right here. Again, there's nothing going forward because they don't exist anymore. Same as the 2007 A bond in the water fund, you've got a bond that we're going to keep on property taxes, or at least proposing to, through fiscal year 14. So again, fiscal year 15, it'll come off the property taxes, and we should be able to pay the remainder of that bond just out of the sewer fund. An item of note, and it is going to be a significant policy option for the City Council, and I think it's illustrated graphically fairly well right here, is you have sewer connection fees for the Rob Roy project. So Bristol Bay, Caledonia, Westbury, which is Ocean Atlantic, all committed at some point years ago to give us a certain amount of sewer fees each year for some amount of years in the future. Caledonia and Ocean Atlantic have yet to send us any money, or they owe us a significant amount of money, if I recall correctly. And Bristol Bay, Pulte, previously Centex, has been paying us. So their final payment, though, is in fiscal year 13. So good news is that they're paying it. The bad news is that fiscal year 14, that revenue stream dries up, as you can see right there. So in order to maintain the budget, you have to have something that fills that gap. So we are proposing a sewer infrastructure fee, $8.25 per month per user, so similar to our water bonding fee, will be necessary in fiscal year 14. You don't have to make a decision on that really until June of 2013, so you've got another year. And really, you don't have to make a decision on it at all if the budgetary picture improves or you figure out a different way to fund it. To me, this is probably what you're looking at if the economy doesn't significantly improve. So that is a policy option for the City Council. One of our items to note on the revenue side, you've got a transfer from the general fund in fiscal year 14 and going beyond. That's actually non-home rule sales tax dollars. So the referendum that was approved, we've got 1% additional sales tax for each of the stores in the city. This is the money that is generated from those sales. It's getting transferred from the general fund, so that's where we have to receive it, into the sewer fund, and is paying the Rob Roy sewer bonds. So this is the tracking mechanism so that everybody can see that the sales tax that you're paying, additionally, are totally sewer fund and paying off for financing issues. Okay, next page, the latter half of the sewer fund expenses. Again, you've got Route 47 expansion costs in here for each year going forward. And we do have a Windet Ridge sewer recapture in fiscal year 13. It's due, I believe it's October 2013, so maybe it should be fiscal year 14. But I'll have to go back and check. Nevertheless, we've got a budget, whichever fiscal year it ends up coming in. Whether or not that's offset by some mowing fines and liens that are on the property and are in the process of going through the court system is a different story, and that's something we'll have to revisit at a later date. Again, summary page, sewer fund, same surplus and deficits as the beginning page, and same fund balance equivalency. So same conversation. We need to make sure that this is relatively level over time. Okay, on to Parks and Recreation. First is your operating budget. Call this the 79. And it's easy to notate in your budget because the first two numbers of the line items are all 79. It's called the Special Revenue Fund. It just means that it's a general operating fund, but it generates a significant amount of revenues. So unlike the engineering department or community development, we charge user fees to take the class. So the cost of operating the Parks and Recreation Department is significantly offset by the user fees generated. So in addition to program fees, you have park rental fees. So people pay to use the parks, baseball teams pay to use the baseball fields, and lease agreements from the buildings. So River City Roasters, Geneva Kayak, those businesses are paying the city to rent those buildings, and that goes into the 79 fund. And then obviously on the expense side, you have everything having to do with park maintenance, not necessarily new construction of parks, but park maintenance, cutting the grass, weed control, and then all non-rec center recreation programs. And that's important to note too. So there's two separate budgets, one only for rec center items and the other for everything else. Again, summary page for the 79 budget. Basically in the fund balance here, we do show that they're going to have about $168,000 in their bank account each year from year to year. And that's just to maintain a steady cash flow. So they have bills to pay each month, twice a month actually, and they have one bank account. So rather than the city's general fund loaning them money every 2 weeks, they should have a bank account that has its own fund balance and then carries that forward. That way they're able to pay their bills without issue. Okay, on to the revenues and expenses. The revenue side on the top, you've got hometown days, which is important to note. There's a significant jump in revenues from last year to this year. We are proposing to hire a national act for a Thursday concert at hometown days. The idea, and it's still being debated by the park board, is to get a band on a drive-through, is what they call a national act that's got maybe a booking at Lollapalooza or something, and they'll come to Yorkville for a reduced fee, basically just pick up extra money on their way out of the state, maybe to another location. So we don't, we have a couple people in mind, but we haven't picked anybody definitively yet. And really, it just depends on whether they're willing to do it. So remains to be seen, but hopefully exciting. Rental income. This is where I talked about the Geneva Kayak money going into the fund. Also here you've got the Verizon cell tower, the flagpole cell tower in Wheaton Woods Park. That revenue is going to the Parks and Recreation Department. The increase in the transfer from the general fund here is increasing from 12 to 13, solely due to the fact that we're coding health insurance now out of the Parks and Recreation operating fund. So last year, all those costs were contained within the finance department or your admin services department. So Parks and Recreation wasn't necessarily paying for them. Now they are, and we're bumping up the transfer so that they're able to afford that, obviously. On the expense side in parks, one small policy issue, $10,000 we are proposing for weed control. I had a lot of complaints last year about dandelions in the park, and so $10,000 would allow us to do broadleaf weed control in every park and open space in the city. So if we want to do that, that's the amount of money that it would take to do. And then the last line item on the park side is repair and maintenance budget. We've been really good with extending the life span of all of our equipment and vehicles, so we're not replacing them as often, which hopefully is saving us money on purchasing new vehicles. However, it does cost us a little bit of extra money each year to repair the old vehicles. Okay, next page, Recreation Department, items of note. Really, the only policy change here is up in salaries and wages. I was the interim director of Parks and Recreation up until May or June of this year. Laura's since taken over, so they moved my salary out of this department, put it in admin, and moved Laura's from community development into Parks and Recreation. So the change there is just a result of moving personnel in the org chart around. Okay, on to the rec center. Your main sources of revenue are membership fees and program fees. And your expenses are going to include all front desk staff. You've got a full-time facility coordinator, and everything else that it takes to run the rec center itself and its associated programs. So if you were to cut ties with the rec center, none of those expenses should go from the rec center budget back into the 79 budget. That's the way that we code things. We say, if we have the rec center, or if we didn't have the rec center, would we still be running this? And if we are, then we code that program expense and revenue on the 79 budget. So we try to keep them separate. The budget projections past fiscal year 13, we didn't do a 5-year budget because there's still a lot to be determined about the facility. We've canceled the lease past July 2013, so we know that we're not going to extend the current lease. But property or purchase negotiations are still ongoing. It's been reported on in the paper, and really until you know whether you are or aren't going to buy it, and what other options there are, you can't really make a budget projection for a few years in the future. So we're only looking at fiscal year 13. The one thing that is notable is the membership fees. We are increasing the projection from 12 to 13 by $20,000 based solely upon what we've actually seen happen in the past couple months. Membership fees have been slightly higher. We've had more people come in. And so that doesn't necessarily reflect a price increase on anybody. It's just more people are using the facility, so we're receiving more rent. And then just one item of note, if we cut ties with it, don't operate it, we still do have to make a property tax payment in fiscal year 14 because taxes are always a year in arrears. This is the rec center again. My only note on this for surpluses and deficits each year, they're highly speculative. Even the fiscal year 12 projections that we showed in there at $91,000, we don't really know what that is. We think it's going to be less than that, but we're still trying to figure out exactly. So even the $78,000 and the $53,000, it really depends on what you do with the facility and what you do with the recreation program in the future. Okay, so that wraps up tonight's presentations. Our next one again is February 28th, so that'll be the last one. Your two main funds are the general fund, which includes all of your admin, finance, community development, police department, streets department, refuse service, and all of your general fund revenues. So sales tax projections, income tax projections, transfers out, and your citywide capital, which is going to be the discussion on River Road Bridge. It's going to be road resurfacing, so a lot of policy options, obviously, in the next presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Do you have any additional business? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session for security procedures and the use of personnel and equipment to respond to an actual or threatened or reasonably potential danger, for the purchase or lease of real property, for personnel, and for pending or imminent litigation.
So moved.
Roll call, please.
Spears? Aye. Milczewski?
Aye.
Colosimo?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Keeling? Gilson?
Aye.
Buckhauser?
Aye.
Muntz?
Aye.
Thank you, and there will be no action after executive session.